very often there are decisions made on the government level in South Africa that make very little sense. One of those decisions that happened quite recently was following a contamination or a incorrect canning of some tinned fish. And this, not even this tinned fish, but a different brand of tinned fish was part of the government school feeding program, meaning that it's part of the lunch meals that are sent to schools to feed low-income children in school. And this tinned fish is a family, it's in the sardine family, so it's really high in omega-3s and other fatty oils and protein. So, in terms of nutrition for a growing child, it's a really good thing to be including in the lunchbox, all right? And the schools have been providing that for free. Fantastic. But there was this contamination scare of some tinned fish that had been imported from China that they apparently hadn't canned correctly, and it was potentially not safe for human consumption. So there was this big recall, and somewhere something happened that led the guy in charge of the school feeding program to decide that no, that because this one brand was affected, all tinned fish is now going to be recalled out of schools, sent back to the suppliers. The government doesn't want to feed the kids tinned fish anymore. They're going to get soya mince. All right, so I'm not really a fan of soya. Okay, it's a good source of protein, but it certainly doesn't compare at all to that tinned fish that the kids were getting. It doesn't have that fatty acid profile, and it's also more expensive than the tinned fish. So it leads one to ask questions. And this is now after I was listening to a spokesperson on a radio station being interviewed by the radio jockey, the DJ, asking, okay, well, why is this being done? Isn't fish better for kids? It's a better financial investment. It ends up costing less. Why those tinned fish that were in the schools were not affected by the recall at all? Why is all of the tinned fish now being stopped in schools? Who's benefiting? It's definitely not the kids. And the spokesperson who was being interviewed just kind of danced around the questions and didn't answer the questions. They just kept saying that soya mince is better. According to who? I don't know. So who is benefiting from this? It's not the school kids. Maybe there's someone somewhere who has some kind of investment in soya products and they're somehow linked to the government. And things like this are pretty common. Like it happens a lot where there's this statement of this change that's being implemented coming from the government and people just go, why? It doesn't make any sense. It's unfortunately a very good example of so many cases in which the South African government isn't making choices that benefit the public, that benefit the people of South Africa. A lot of choices are being made that benefit a small handful of people in powerful positions. And I'm sure the same thing happens in other countries. I'm just sharing this because I'm in South Africa. This is the news that I'm hearing. These are the interviews that I can listen to on the radio stations. And it brings us now to the point of like, all right, the government's corrupt. The government doesn't have the people's best interest at heart. What the hell do we do now? Okay, so it's not an easy question to answer because the reality is that in a place like South Africa, even if people were voting for different political parties, we don't know how deep the corruption goes. So we're faced at this very big, daunting kind of problem where there doesn't seem to be any possible solution. And at the end of the day, as far as I can see, the key to most issues is education, at least when it comes to human issues, so political, economic, and where our activities impact the environment, things like that. Most of the time, it comes down to education. And I don't mean like maths and science and biology and the things that you learn in school. I mean like critical reasoning skills, the ability to read with a high level of comprehension, and having a large enough vocabulary so that you can actually process information effectively. Because talking to people around on the streets, the scope of the vocabulary that most people has is incredibly limited. So people's worlds are very small because you can only really comprehend that for which you have words. And so many people are so lacking in so many words. And when it comes to things like corruption, why does one practice corrupt acts? It comes with that desire to serve the self, to increase the personal gain and things like that. I've been selfish in my life. I've had areas of my life where I was only thinking about myself, and periods of my life when I was the most important thing in the universe. And what changed that was me stepping outside of my way of thinking. So questioning how I was looking at the world. And that came from a degree of self-education, of exploring different people's lives, seeing the world differently through different people's eyes. So that education, that ability to, well, not ability, but that willingness to start looking at things differently is something that we could all benefit from practicing. And what can we do about the government being corrupt? Well, we can be the examples. We can be the change we want to see. We can practice what we preach. We can practice what we expect from those people who are leading our countries. And will it have a direct, immediate impact? No. But the more of us who are living that leadership role, who are living that example, who are saying, this is who I am, this is why I am, this is how I came to be who I am, the more people are going to be listening, because there's a louder chorus of voices joining together, saying the same thing. And one by one, that creates change. And I think the most important factor is that it's not forced change. It's not me imposing anything on anyone else. It's simply me sharing who I am and you sharing who you are. And more and more of us doing that and living by the principles that would be best for all, principles that actually are supportive for the majority, if not all life. All right. Thank you very much for watching. You're going to see me next time.